So where do you see Pakistan fitting into this uneasy, somewhat tense peace between India and China?
I think that so there are two ways to look at this. So on one hand, Pakistan's problems have reached a level where I don't think that Islamabad can afford to, have an acrimonious relationship with New Delhi.
Yeah.
And Pakistan cannot afford, especially with its close relationship with Beijing, cannot afford to get into this mess. And
Yes.
its interest is to stay out of it. Certainly, the United States would like to not want Pakistan to get involved with this. And there's always the question in Washington, as you are well aware, that in our efforts to contain China, in our efforts to work with India, where is Pakistan? What can we expect from Pakistan? On one hand, there are those who say, look, Pakistan is so weak and dependent on the United States and its allies for its own well being that it's unlikely for Pakistan to take any misadventure or miscalculate and do something that would be detrimental to U.S. interests for the region and for globally speaking. But on the other hand, a weak country like Pakistan, becomes more and more susceptible and vulnerable to influence and pressure from countries like Beijing and China, and even the Gulf countries. But obviously the Gulf countries are allies of the United States. But then the big question is, to what extent can China arm twist Pakistan and leverage that relationship in its efforts to pressure India? And so, it's at the end of the day, if you look at it rationally, one would think that Pakistan would like to steer clear of this mess. But on the other hand, if you are, susceptible to influence and undue pressure, then it's hard to tell.
It's hard to tell. Yes, yes, I totally agree with you. And Kamran, on the final thought, so don't you really think that there's a school of thought? I mean, in a reasonably growing circle in the United States. Of course, not the mainstream and not allied or affiliated with the power circles, but where they say that American empire is an empire in decline, and it either needs to confront that reality, do something about it, accept it, or reinvent its future, its ambition, rescale it, or it could continue to be sort of unfazed by the fact that Asian powers like China are now globally, are global players. And with the rise of BRICS, for example, and other developments, it is certainly not no longer the unipolar world that perhaps the US had enjoyed for a few decades. What do you say to that?
I would argue that the decline of the United States is quite hyped, and it's been hyped for as long as I can remember. We in people who are from South Asia, we've been hearing this since we were kids,
Yeah.
and sort of there's some fantasization of this sort of idea. But the reality, if you look at the reality, the Chinese economy is, in a serious downturn. The China, even before it could sort of translate its economic power into military power, is now experiencing this economic downturn. So, and China has not, and multiple crises going on. There's a political crisis, even within the economic realm. You have the debt crisis, you have the housing crisis, you have non-performing loans, and the economy is in bad shape. So I don't think that China is in a position to challenge the fact that the Minister of Commerce of China actually asked the U.S. Commerce Secretary to come over and discuss and ways in which we can reduce these tensions, shows that where China stands right now. Russia's position is very clear. Its status is very clear in the wake of the Ukraine war, its dismal performance, the sanctions on it, and the infighting happening within the Kremlin. So if these are the two powers behind BRICS, and India is a third power in BRICS, and India is aligning with the United States, so then you ask yourself this question, and not that BRICS was anything serious to begin with, then what is the future of BRICS? You can add Iran into the mix, you can have other countries join in, but what is it really? What, is it a military alliance? Is it a political alliance? Is it an economic alliance? Or is it just one of those anti-Western clubs that take place and they gather with each other? There's a lot of media coverage, but at the end of the day, in pure geopolitical terms, nothing really comes out of it. So I would say, look, not that the United States doesn't have its problems. There are a lot of them. But the United States is still the world's superpower. The United States is still guaranteeing security for multiple regions in the world, still the largest economy. And, I doubt it's still the center of gravity of the international system. I doubt that will change anytime soon, especially given, and even if the United States were to experience a serious economic downturn, the other players, the nature abhors vacuum, and in this case, the nature of the international system, there isn't going to be a vacuum. So the United States is going to be there, even if it's weakened. There's nobody else to take its place, and so I don't think that the United States is in serious decline, but I do think that every other player that is trying to challenge the United States is in serious decline.